plan was to do the jingle before the interview, so it has to go wrong one time. So now the technicians know how to do it. Thank you very much for that. So welcome, Nesrine. Very happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
How has been your journey so far? You have been around a while.
Yes. Hi, Thomas. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here, and thanks for coming to this interview. So you mean my PM journey, right?
Yes, yes.
So it's going to be a bit long, but so I have a background in tech. I had an electrical engineering degree back in 2008 from Grenoble.
What I meant was, you have been in Zurich before this event.
Oh, yes. I was at PMF, Product Management Festival,
yes.
Last week. I was giving a talk about media product management, which is my role today. And I've been like moving a lot and traveling a lot over the last 3 weeks, actually, because I also am teaching at INSEAD, Product Management. And here I am at Cologne today for you.
Here you are, and we're very happy to have you. So what we will do now is have an interview for about 25 minutes, and then you, the audience, will have the opportunity to ask Nesrine all your questions about her stations. She has been at Skype, at Spotify, at Google. She's a product manager with a lot of experience, so please prepare a lot of questions for her. And we have a microphone here in the middle of the room. And please do not touch it. And if you have a mask, you might wear it when speaking into it. But you don't need that necessary, because we have a person just for the task of disinfecting the microphone. So it's already getting a job. I believe you can be hired for that job nowadays. So if you have a question, please go to the microphone and ask it. And I will give you a sign at the end of the interview when you can actually do that. So you're very much welcome to ask all the questions, because from our experience, the best questions always come from the audience. I don't know why I am here, because you are doing the better questions, but I will try to do my best until then. All right. Nesrine,
Yes.
you have been born in Tunisia, moved to France, studied in electrical engineering in Grenoble, as one of 2 women, actually. You hold a PhD degree at the university in Paris, master's degree in electrical engineering from Grenoble, and nowadays you manage highly visible consumer products for the past 8 years, focusing on strategic initiatives at Skype and Spotify. Currently working at Google Meet, and yeah, you joined Google in the midst of the pandemic. And when we last spoke, you even haven't been at the office.
Yep.
Did you have the chance to look at the office until then?
Finally, yes. Yeah, actually, I visited the office for the first time 3 weeks ago, so very new.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, I started early this year. Everyone was like working from home, still working from home, but now it's much more open, so many Googlers happen to go and visit the office, and that's exactly what I did. It's a great office, by the way. It's a brand new office, and as most Google offices, like a very cool and collaborative environment. A lot of lounge and like a collaborative area to allow people to chat and discuss together, but also like playing games together, eat. We have the canteen, we have a massage room, we have even a nap room. Everything actually we may need during a day. Even the gym, by the way.
It's ridiculous. I believe there's always a person just having the job to disinfecting everything, right?
Oh, yes. People are very serious about that now. Even like Sweden is a bit special nowadays. So since we moved at level 2, like risk level 2, we are a bit less strict about like wearing masks in the office, as long as you have your vaccine. I have a feeling that life is back to normal compared to other countries as well, which is very comfortable, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So let's jump right into product management.
Yes.
What do you think is product management?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think answers vary from a product manager to another, but from my perspective, product management is a cross-functional job that is all about bringing value to the users. what I mean by value is usually two areas of value. So we define values as economic value, for example, how can you bring more revenue or reduce cost? Or the other more important value, which is happiness and user value, like solving a problem that happened that the user are suffering from. So it's all about going out and talk to the users, identify their problem, their challenges, and turning these problems into ideas for innovative solutions. So this is what the product manager role is all about, like thinking about how can we turn technology into something that solves a problem, but viable for the business as well. I mean, there is no solution if no business as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what do you think, you're working especially with media?
Yes.
How much changes product management when you work with media?
So media is similar to any other technology. So I'm a technical product manager. So many people sometimes ask me, what is it to be a technical product manager? It means that I have a technical background, and I use that technical knowledge to transform technology into a solution or into a product that can solve a user's problem. What does it mean? I can give like some examples. I know, for example, how to compress video and how to process video. And very recently, last year, we launched it in Google Meet, the ability to change your background with the image or by blurring it out or even with the video. So this is because there was a problem of solving privacy. So when everyone was working from home and still working from home, there is a need to protect your privacy when you're working from home. And technology allowed us like to define what's the depth in the video, identify what's the background, what's the foreground, and knowing that technology help us as a product manager to turn that technology and meet it with a problem and get a product out of it or a feature out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a very long interview about actually that product, how you developed the video feature, and you can read it right now at digitaleleute.de. It's about 5 pages long, a lot of pictures from you walking around in Stockholm, very beautifully. It's awesome, you should read it. And it's of course very detailed about how Google actually, how your teams actually developed those products, very interesting. So, when you have been studying in Paris, you said you have a technical background. Yep. I want to speak a little bit about statistical multiplexing for video broadcasting, because this is what you have actually been doing there. That was the start of your technical career. Tell us, please, really quick, what it is about.
Sure. So that was my research domain. So after my electrical engineering degree, I wanted to get deeper in tech. I did an industrial PhD. What it means that it was a collaboration between Nokia Bell Labs, the research center, with the university. And I worked, as you said, on statistical multiplexing of video channels. What that means is that today, imagine you have 5 videos that you want to stream on a broadcast channel. The easiest way is you take that channel and you divide it by 5, and you allocate a bandwidth for each of these 5. But that's not fair, because you may have a football match, you have a cartoon, you have a documentary, I mean, the content is not the same, and the requirement in channel is also not the same. So my PhD was all about identifying what's the content, what's the activity on the content, and slice the bandwidth in a smart way so that the football match will get more than a documentary or like a news or cartoon. So it's all about identifying the content and smartly allocate the bandwidth accordingly.
I probably would give more bandwidth to the documentation, but that's probably something of a personal...
It depends how motion you have in your documentary.
Very interesting. And this also brought you to your next step, which was Skype. How did you join Skype?
Yeah, so I've been in research for 5 years. And the interesting part is that in research, we do a lot of discovery. So it's all about getting something new, doing innovation. And the challenge is to be like unique, premier, do something that no one did before. That's what all the research is about. But what really triggered me after 5 years is that I really wanted to see what happened after the ideation. So after the discovery and you have your prototype, usually we hand it over to a complete different domain and department that will implement it and ship it to the users. And I had no view on what's happening to my prototype. So I left research, and I started as a product manager at Skype, and I moved from Paris to Stockholm. That was my move. And at the time, Microsoft really valued my PhD, my technical knowledge, and also valued my attitude of learning. So they said, okay, she don't necessarily know much about product management, but she has that technical background, and that's exactly what we want, and that's exactly what we need. So for 4 years, I owned the video area at Skype. What does that mean is that I owned from compression to transmission to decoding and display. So everything that is touching the full chain from video at Skype was under my area.
And can you give us an impression of the product organization at Skype at this time?
Yeah, so at that time, which is 6 years ago, or no, less than 6 years ago, yeah, maybe 5 years ago, so Skype is usually like between US and Europe, and in Europe we had different places as well, like Tallinn, Stockholm, London, and the way how it was structured is by area. So there was the video area that I was owning, there was the audio area, there has the calling, so how to establish a call, there has the payment area, so it's usually per activity.
Yeah.
And these activities are also interacting with each other because there is no video if no audio. So I had to work a lot with calling team, with the audio team in order to make sure that my video area works as expected. Yeah.
And have they been also in Stockholm?
Yes, calling, audio, and video used to be in Stockholm at the time.
So it helped working together.
Yes.
But did you also have to work with teams which were abroad?
Yes, so when I joined Skype, the first time my team was in Tallinn. So not very far away, but it required me, of course, to travel almost every second week. But Tallinn is only 1 hour difference. However, like other departments, not media related, but like regarding payment, etc., used to be in Seattle, like in Redmond, which is, of course, much more in terms of time difference, 9 hours time difference. It started, in the beginning it was a challenge, but then you have to learn how to collaborate. So it's all about asking around, asking for advice, and looking for what could work better in order to establish a good working relationship.
So when you shifted from the technical work to being a product manager,
yes.
How did that go?
To be honest with you, the first year was a big mess because I'm coming from an area that you own it. So I was prototyping. I was an individual contributor. So I was happy at the end of the day of having my prototype. Yes. And when you go to product management, it's completely the opposite. You don't own anything. It's your team who develop, you're helping them. So defining the value, what's my value in the team, the first year was extremely challenging. I had to ask around and ask for feedback from my team, from my peers, from my manager. Do you think I'm useful here? Like, do you think I'm bringing any value to the team? And very quickly I realized that there was value, of course. So the team really need the what and the why. They are extremely good at defining the how. So when you tell them what we want to build and why we want to build it, they are very good. They are the expert media engineers, and they don't need me in the implementation or the how perspective. However, if we don't tell them why we're doing it, there may be a lot of confusion and like diversions in the way how we implement it. So my big role, I understood it after probably a year of being a product manager, is like being extremely focused on communicating to the team, and by the team I mean the designers, the engineers, what's the what, but more specifically, why are we building it? Because the why influences the how a lot.
Yes, and you probably made also some mistakes in the first place. For example, did you tend to write the tickets? Did you do that mistake? Most people do that when they first join at product management. Maybe
the mistake I've made my first PM career was like to challenge too much the how. I was like sometime joining architecture discussion with the engineers, and having that technical background, I was sometimes challenging why are we doing it that way, not this way. But very quickly I realized that may impact the trust relationship between PM and the team. And I realized by stepping out of that and trusting them because they are the expert in the area was much better. that improved the trust relationship and improved our long-term relationship too. So my advice is like, even if a PM has a technical background, be involved in the discussion, but not too much into challenging the way how we implement the solution.
What I heard about Skype being bought by Microsoft is that it changed a lot. Like, it was a typical Sweden company at that time, and then Microsoft came, and then a lot of work shifted also to Silicon Valley. Did you have the same impression that when you have been at Skype, the organization changed a lot?
I'm probably not the right person to answer the question, because when I joined Skype, it was already acquired. But I heard a lot around me, like all the colleagues has been talking about this kind of changes, because like it used to be small. So the company size was much smaller, but when they joined, like when Skype was acquired by Microsoft, the scale had to, it has to scale up very quickly. So of course that influenced the processes. The process we need to adapt to the Microsoft process. It makes shipping longer, and the database is also increased a lot. So that's probably the most impactful aspect. So when you scale up, there are extra processes, there are extra layers, there's more management, of course, and you're moving away from that startup style into like big company, and that influenced the ways of working a lot.
But you didn't have the impression that it was a problem in your time, but the people who were there before you told you that.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah.
So what did you take away from Skype?
So I learned a lot how to collaborate with cross-countries team. So when I was a researcher, I only worked with the Paris team, and immediately I had to learn with how to work with teams in Stockholm, in London, in Tallinn, and in Redmond. So that's probably something really very important that I learned over my first 4 years at Skype. And the other thing is that it's very, very important to work cross-functional. So even if I was owning the video part, it was fundamental to work with other PMs, like the audio PM, the calling PM, the payment PM, because otherwise it could be extremely easy to fall into the bias of only focusing on the video and forget about the bigger picture, which is Skype as a product. Yes, I own the video, but I own it for a reason, which is the product itself. So that's my main takeaway from Skype.
Let's jump to Spotify.
Yeah.
Spotify is a very interesting company because they do something, not only music, but also podcasts nowadays. Why did you join Spotify in the first place?
Yes, so after 4 years at Skype, I thought at the time that we reached the maturity level into video conferencing. So it was well developed, it worked very well. And being in Stockholm, I said, yeah, why not trying another media area, which is my main area of expertise. So I applied for Spotify, and it did work well. At Spotify, I was offered the role of transforming media from raw format, so the format that we get from the labels, into a format that we consume as end users, independently of our device, of our network, of our country. So it's all about transforming something big into something consumable. And of course, like I was like fascinated about the culture, I was fascinated about the ways of working, and the size was also comfortable to start with.
Yeah. If you want to know more about Spotify, I strongly recommend joining a talk from Robert Stevenson today. He's here from Spotify, and he will be at 2:10 on stage 1 here, right here. And he will talk about making a collection at Spotify a solved problem. So another part of the journey here. And yeah, what I learned, I interviewed him too, and made an interview with him. You can also read it on Digitale Leute. In that interview, he was talking a lot about, or per se about product management, of course. And everybody knows squads and tribes is a very typical thing for Spotify. Did you work with squads and tribes at Spotify when you were there?
Yeah, definitely. It's a religion at Spotify. Like, I think everyone working at Spotify would be working either as part of a squad, and more importantly, as part of a tribe. So tribe is, you have to see it as a domain, like something a bit bigger, and squad is the team. What really surprised me is the maturity in Agile when I joined Spotify. So what I didn't say about Skype is that when I joined Skype, there was a willing of introducing the company into Agile. And I was working very closely with coaches. So it was like a beginning of becoming Agile. But when I moved it to Spotify, I was mind-blown by the maturity level of how to work in an Agile environment. And when I mean by Agile, it's not Scrum or Kanban or whatever. It's being collaborative, being open to change, being able to stop, inspect, and adapt, open to failures. I mean, these kind of principles that I was like very exposed to at Spotify. I was part of a squad, as I said, like part of the transforming the media from raw to a consumable format. And my tribe is called Playback. So we owned anything related to playing music or video as well on Spotify. Yep.
And you also took care a little bit about podcasts, when I'm right. So
at the time being at Spotify, the strategy, which is widely shared today, is called audio first. Audio, not music first. So it's very strict and very clear from the company that we want to be the audio company. Could be a podcast, music, but also doesn't say anything about audio only. They said audio first. So me and my team, we have been exploring other type of media that can enrich the audio. At the end, our goal is to be audio first, whether you want to use video into it or any other type.
I mean, video is nothing else than very good audio, and then you have additional information via the video.
So I actually worked on adding canvas, for example, for Spotify. When you listen to music, you can see this moving small clip in loop. That was also a way of enriching the music. We added I think 2 years ago, the video podcast. So now you will not only listen to podcasts, but you can even watch some exclusive video podcasts on Spotify. So that was a great example of how can we follow a strategy but be open to use other media type for that.
And while you have been at Spotify, I'm pretty sure Spotify was also growing like hell. Like, it's growing all the time. It's getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Rob will tell you a lot about that, and you can also read it on Digitale Leute. How was it when you were there, and what kind of, how did it change your work?
Yeah, so when I joined, I think it was around 2,000 employees, and when I left 4 years after, we more than doubled. So just to give you an idea how the pace is and how the growth is happening at Spotify, I think now it's even much more than that. So there is always this trend of growing as a company. However, like there is always a focus on autonomy. In my tribe, the Playback tribe, the tribe lead was always focusing too much into how do we make sure that our tribe is autonomous. So even if the company is growing, there was always a need to protect the tribe from having high dependency on other tribes. So I mostly worked with my squad, but also the other squads that are already in the tribe, which makes the work, of course, much, much more easier than if I had to collaborate with so many other tribes in different countries and different time zones.
Yeah.
So I think that's the guidance from the lead. Even if we grow, how do we make sure that we are still autonomous?
Before we jump into what you're doing at Google, I want to give you the sign. In about a couple of minutes, you will be able to ask your questions. So you can slowly stand up and move to the microphone if you like to. Very much welcome your questions. So you, of course, changed to the next company, which is Google. Why did you do that, and what's your task there?
Yeah, it's funny because I told you earlier that 4 years ago, when I left Skype, I thought that we reached the level of maturity in video conferencing. But what happened last year, when we all started working from home, we found ourselves working in an environment that is noisy, that is low light exposure. 6-year-old kids had to work with a video conferencing tool. Yoga classes became online. So my hypothesis that we reached a high level of maturity in video conferencing was not good. So I thought that with my media expertise and with my background in video conferencing, I could take that video conferencing area into a higher level. That's why I joined specifically Google Meet. And it's actually a great area to be in because there are so many things happening, specifically due to the pandemic, or thanks to the pandemic, I don't know how to say that. Yeah. We have been like working specifically on features that can allow people work with Meet at home, but in the best environment possible, by protecting their privacy, by reducing noise around us, by exposing ourselves in a better, like lightning ways. Yeah.
Yeah, what Google loves to do, working with software, and you can see it on the Pixel phones. They had a lot of crappy cameras in their Pixel phones, but the pictures were one of the most beautiful, so you are very good in optimizing visual information and, of course, also the audio. When you joined Google, there was the pandemic, so you didn't join it at the office. You were at home, and you were onboarded at home.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
To be honest with you, I was scared. Should I really do that move or not? Being in a comfort zone, working at Spotify for 4 years, should I really take that risk and be onboarded online? But it did work so well. I never stepped into the office for the first 6 months, but despite that, everything went so smooth. I got all my material, my device home. I got a full 3 weeks of onboarding remote. And I'm lucky, to be honest, because I joined in the middle of the pandemic, not the beginning of the, like in the middle of it, not the beginning of it. So Google has been quick on adapting the onboarding process to the remote, because it was clear that it would be long-term, not just a couple of months. So I had to meet my colleague. I had a lot of one-on-ones. Actually, I spent my first 2 weeks only doing one-on-ones. So I asked my manager, can you give me like names and people that I really need to connect with? Yeah. And I spent these 2 full weeks having this meet and greet, saying, hi, this is who I am.
And there's a special procedure at Google when onboarding. So there you will join another team, which is just filled with new Googlers from different domains. Yes. And you come together and build actually a new product.
Exactly. This is what we call the onboarding process, which is very, very interesting, by the way, because many Nooglers, this is how we call like a new Googler, join on a monthly basis. So what Google do is that we put these Noogler into a cohort or like a team, and we are asked to work as a team for 3 weeks. So come up with an idea, do some discovery, build it up, and even make a presentation and a pitch at the end of the 3rd week. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best working environments, to be honest with you, because no one knows. There is like a high level of psychological safety, and there is no one that knows more than the other, and we're all sharing the same common goal, which is learning and sharing with each other. So it's like a full 3 weeks where we collaborate remote, within the same time zone. So this is the only constraint that Google tried to meet in order to help us also work in a better way. And I'm still meeting with my cohorts from my onboarding because we had so much fun. We didn't end up like building a big product. It was just a Chrome extension. But we learned so much from these 3 weeks together. Yeah.
And now is the time for your questions. So if you want to ask a question, please move to the microphone. I have, of course, a lot of questions prepared, but, of course, your questions might be a little bit better. So one question I have for you is, now you have been at Skype, Spotify, and Google doing product management for media. What would you say is important to know when doing product management for media? For example, like it might be different when you do product management for AI teams or for other teams.
Yeah. I usually call media product management similar as technology product management, because if you're doing AI or Internet of Things or 5G or whatever other technology, it's really important to know the technology as good as you know, as best as you can, because our role as a media product manager or technology product manager is to transform that raw technology that we don't know exactly what to do with into something that solves user problem. That's one thing. And the second aspect that I'm helping a lot with my team, being in the technology area, is knowing the trend. Technology goes like crazy in terms of speed. So I need to know what other competitors are using in terms of codec. What's happening like in the codec field? Like, do we have a new codec that is more adapted for low bit rate? A great example for that has been like at my time at Spotify, we used to have like a high quality and low quality audio.
Compression.
Compression, yeah. So medium and high. And then when Spotify started to grow in like Asia and emerging country, we immediately learned that the medium quality was not low enough for the network of these countries. So we had to adapt that bitrate and lower it down to those countries. But it was not as easy as just tweaking the bitrate and put it down to 20 or 25. We had to go out and see which codec is more adapted to low bitrate, because the codec that was used for mid quality is not adapted for low bitrate. So knowing the trend, knowing the technology is key in order to bring it into the product.
And you probably also have to check the devices they're playing on, because they not only have lower bit rate, but also lower quality devices.
Of course.
So all the difference. So we have a question.
Yes.
What is your name and your domain, maybe, or your profession?
My name is Tamer Kılınç. I am a software developer at Zipgate. And I wanted to ask, or maybe I'll start different. I'm loving it to be a software developer, but one day I will also, I'd like to switch roles and try to start with product managing, product owning. And I find it difficult to make the transition from thinking about how a problem is being solved to, how I can help my team to solve a problem. So I wanted to ask you if you have any tips, and maybe you can tell how you managed to do this, because you also had this technical background. But yeah.
Thank you for the question. Very good one, because it's very common as well. Actually, I can give you 3 tips. You asked for tips. The first one, there are a lot, nowadays compared to like 9 years ago when I started PMing, there are a lot of great books. Like there is Inspired by Marty Kagan, there are like Escaping the Build Trap by Melissa Perry. I mean, these are great books that can allow to at least be introduced to product management. The second tip is to shadow a PM. There are a lot of programs today in big companies and even like mid-sized companies that allow this kind of opportunity. So you just, even if you don't have that opportunity in your company, ask a PM. Usually they are open for this kind of helpful tips, and ask if they have like a busy day with a lot of meeting or a lot of activity happening, and you can shadow that PM in order to be exposed to what the PM day look like. Probably you will not like it. I mean, it's also good to have that impression. And honestly, the third tip would help a lot is get a mentor. Get a mentor that can get you into that aspect. I'm in this position because I always believed in having a coach and mentor, and I'm very thankful for all the advice they had shared with me. So get someone that is already in the field. Set up like a weekly or a bi-weekly time where you can discuss how can I shift from the how to a why. It's a concrete question. It's a concrete challenge. And I'm pretty sure, like with the experience they had, they will probably share a lot on a daily basis or a weekly basis as well. But start by reading books or article, shadow a PM, and get a mentor are key.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then we have a short disinfection phase. Oh my God. I didn't expect that one.
All right. Interesting.
Next question.
Hi,
your name and your profession, please.
Yes, my name's Kai. I'm a product developer at Job Valley here in Cologne. And Nesrine, first, thank you for being here. Thank you for the interesting interview. You said at Skype the teams were divided, right? You had audio and video team. And so in retrospect, would you say this was a good way of slicing it? Or would you restructure it if you could have restructured it? And also, how is it at Google?
Great question. I honestly have not thought about retrospecting on the Skype structure. So I can elaborate a little bit more on I said like video, audio. Within video, you also have teams dedicated to each piece of the video path. So we had a team for compression. So they owned the codec, implementing how to transform a video from a raw to compress it. We had a team for protocol, because as you know, Skype had like an in-house protocol, not like any TCP or UDP protocol, and that was like the decoding and the display part. And each of these are different teams. So I was PMing the 3 teams at the same time, which for me is very helpful, not being in one or another, because it helped me having the full view of how the video flow from the one participant to another one. I think it's good because we cannot have, let's say, a media PM, audio and video. Audio and being in a media field, I know that audio and video has a lot of difference in challenge and implementation, but I was extremely close with, I remember Jens was the PM for audio. We worked so much close because we're sharing the same challenge and the same within the same. So yes, it's good to have video and audio separate, as long as the PMs are working together on prioritizing, on aligning the priority. And if I have a new feature, I want to make sure that Jens is also aligning it with the audio field. You also asked how is it at Google today. It's still like per program, so quite similar in the sense that it's very, very important that the PM is not embedded into one team and only focus on his team, because it's very easy to feel biased by the team and lose the big picture. Like having on a higher level and being exposed to many other programs is key for PM. There is a cost for it, there is a challenge, because very often PM feel like a lack of feeling of belonging to a team. And if you ask me like, who's your team? It's always not an easy question to answer, but it's very good for the product, because what the team expects from you is the why, and so you only get the why by being like lateral and cross-functional with other domains.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kai.
Thank you very much for the questions, and time is already over.
Oh.
It's already over, so thank you very much for joining. If you want to ask Nesrine any more questions, she will be here until 12 o'clock. So grab her right now when she is going off the stage. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you,
Big round of applause
Thomas.
for her, please.